Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are learning Mishnah's Bava Kamma, Parak Dalet, Chapter 4, Mishnah 5. Okay. Shor shanogach es ha'adam v'meis. If an ox gored a person and the person died. Muad, if the animal was a muad, it already had established a habit, a pattern of goring, then the owner, Mishalim Kaifer V'tam. I'm sorry, Mishalim Kaifer, Misham Kaifer. He then pays Kaifer. Kaifer, which they like translating as a ransom, is a payment that you make. Basically, your animal killed someone, and in some ways, really, you're liable for that, and you're liable death for that. And the Torah actually offered a kaifer for you. You can pay instead to the heirs of the victim. So the way they explained it here is, its owner is liable to death at the hands of heaven, but he can save himself from death by paying a kofar, which they translate as ransom, to the heirs of the victim. Okay, and now the Mishna tells us that number one, this kofar is paid when, as we just said, when the person is killed by the goring, and it's paid only when the animal is a muad. The animal is considered already as a pattern, it's already considered natural for it to damage. The tam, but if the animal is still at the level of a tam, meaning it has not yet become that stage of being considered, fully responsible for a full responsibility for the animal's damages, is patur min ha-kofar. In that situation, the owner is exempt from paying kofar. Now, number one, the fact that there's this distinction between the animal that's a tam or the animal that's a muad as to whether it pays kofar, that's derived from psukim. Now, on the other hand, the halacha that the animal dies should be put to death is a halacha whether the animal is a muad or a tam. That makes no difference, and so that's important to know. No matter what the animal really is supposed to get killed. Now you're going to ask, well, if it's supposed to get killed as a tam, right? Then how to get to the point of being a muad that it should pay kofar? How do you get to that point? So explanation to that is, although an animal is put to death for killing a person just once, it can become a muad, one that has killed 3 times, if it ran away after each killing. Meaning it killed, the witnesses came and said it killed, and they told the owner that, and it was supposed to get killed, and it ran away. And then it killed somebody else. Then it killed somebody else. So there you could have where it becomes a muad, which interestingly they call a muad one that has killed 3 times. What does it mean if the animal just, let's say, gored 3 times without killing? Does that make a difference? I'm not sure. But just for our purposes right now, the muad is, we're calling it a muad. It's calling it a muad to actually kill a person. And it happened that it could do it 3 times because each time it ran away. That is the halacha where we say that the owner of the damaging animal is going to have to pay kofar. Now, how does one pay kofar? Like, how do you figure out the value of how much kofar to pay? The answer to that is the kofar amount is equal to the victim's value just before his death had he been sold as a slave. And this payment is made to the victim's heirs. So whenever we talk about a person's value is measured by, how much he would sell on the market, and that's the value of the kofar that is paid to the heirs of the person who was killed. Now, at the same time, the Mishnah says, as we just said, v'zeva zeh chayav misa. Either one, whether the animal is a muad or the animal is a tam, is liable to be put to death. V'chein bevein, v'chein bevas. The same thing applies if the animal killed a young boy or a young girl, not just an adult, but even a minor. The halacha is that there is going to be the animal is put to death, and you pay kofar. I read here from the bottom. They bring from the Tosfos Yantiv. This law appears in the Torah, as it says, whether it gores a boy or it gores a girl. It could have been thought that the ox is not put to death, nor does the owner pay kofar if it killed a minor who is not yet obligated to mitzvahs. The Torah therefore teaches otherwise. Okay, so therefore, that's what the Mishnah means. The same thing applies to a young boy or to a young girl. Now, this is all. Now, next case goes like this. Nagach Evedai Amma. Let's say the case is that it gored and killed a slave or a slave woman. What happens then? Then we say again, the ox is put to death for doing so, and Noisein Shleishim Slayim. The owner of that ox has to pay 30 slayim to the owner of the slave. He has to pay 30 slayim. Hold on 1 second. Right. He has to pay 30 slayim to the owner of the slave. And as they bring down here at the bottom, here too, the owner pays the fine only if the ox is a muad, but if the ox is put to death, even if it's a tam. So the animal is put to death even if it's a tam for killing a slave. The payment of shloshim slayim, 30 selas, 30 shekel, is only applies if the animal was a muad. And the payment of 30 slayim is bein shuyafa mea mana, whether this slave was worth 100 mana, which they say 100 mana is equivalent of 2,500 slayim, or even if it's the slave is so devalued before he gets killed that he's only worth a single dinar, which is a quarter of a selah. Nonetheless, the Torah says that if the victim is a Gentile slave, the halach is you pay 30 slayim no matter what the value of the slave was. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.